Hello, friend. How are you? I'm in pain today. I am, in a number of different directions, but actually probably more physical pain more than anything. Over the last couple of days, I've been noticing pain all down the left-hand side of my face, all the way into my throat, and it's rather unpleasant. I wanted to do and apply something that I've been learning recently to this pain to see if it has any effect. And to my amazement, some really interesting stuff's been happening. I've been using an app recently called Clubhouse to basically talk to people and meet people online. The thing is, though, I've recognized that one of my biggest fears is to be alone and to feel alone, to feel like I'm not being heard. A couple of weeks ago, I shared with you how I really am quite scared of not being heard. To lean into this a little bit more and to understand the fear that's going on, I decided to open a room and sit there in silence by myself. What was quite interesting is I found that actually the pain that I was experiencing in my jaw and in my head and in my neck was very much associated to the pain that I was feeling by being alone and not being heard. So I decided to sit there for a total of 45 minutes and literally just be at one with everything that was happening. One thing that I've been learning a lot about recently is the fact that what makes our emotions or our thoughts or our sensations difficult isn't the thoughts, the emotions or sensations themselves, but merely the reaction to them. It's a two-stage process. If there is pain in your body, the reaction is then a second part of that process. They're not one thing. As an example, if you were to feel pain anywhere in your body or to have challenging thoughts or challenging emotions, the key is not to already label them as good or bad, but just to recognize them as part of this present moment, rather than saying, I don't want to experience this in this moment, or if I could have experienced things differently, that would be better. Because the thing about the present moment is it is the only thing that's real at this point in time. The mind can come up for a million different reasons to how it could be different and in the many different forms and ways it could be different, but it just simply is the way it is at that time. So I sit there and I watch and I look at all the emotions that are coming up. I look and focus on the pain, and the most interesting things started to happen. The pain and the emotions stop being solid objects. They stop being something that would become concrete. You know, I feel pain here or I feel emotions here. And they started to evolve and twist into each other as well as becoming something completely different entirely. The more I focused on the pain and the emotion that was coming up, the more I noticed actually that they were so flexible and they weren't necessarily a permanent fixture. If anything, they could merely just be an interpretation of what I was sensing in that moment. Being alone isn't necessarily a very nice feeling. And I know this because when I was in school, I used to spend a lot of time alone. And what was really interesting is as I've revisited and leaned into these difficult moments of being alone, of not feeling heard, I've noticed that all the emotions from childhood, all the emotions from my school years, all the emotions from feeling like an outcast, all the emotions from feeling bullied, all the emotions from feeling like a separate part of humanity come rushing to the surface. And the reason why I'm sharing this with you is because life may seem that there are certain things that are good and certain things that are bad, certain things that don't resonate with you and certain things that do resonate with you, certain things that you would avoid, certain things that you wish not to avoid. This happens throughout life in its entirety. But I believe the true power and true mastery lies in not being pushed and pulled by life's forces, but recognizing that these are merely reactions and processes that are happening in your space and within you. By being present and being aware of the emotions and experiences that are happening within the body, you can have a level of perception that gives you control and freedom over your life. No longer do you do something because it's desirable or don't do something because it's not desirable. The freedom of doing anything becomes yours, and you can truly follow what's right for your heart, not what your head has programmed based on survival skills or conditional upbringing. Now, this is easier said than done, but I hope by sharing this with you today, this is something that also gets you thinking about certain things in your life that you could potentially witness rather than react. When it comes to physical pain, it is challenging, but the thing is, I truly believe that we are the ones that actually label our sensations. We are the ones that label our experiences, whether it's being done from a conscious perspective or a subconscious perspective. Being aware of that process, being aware of this thought is good, this thought is bad, this sensation is good, this sensation is bad, is recognizing that we are the ones that create meaning and interpretation on this entire experience and this entire existence. If you can get in the middle between that good and bad, if you can get in the middle of that labeling process, you'll realize that actually the things that we inherently call good and bad, the things that we label and the things that we articulate, the things that we look at have no sides. They are not inherently good or bad by design. They are completely and utterly neutral. Human beings are the ones that actually interpret and decide if something is good or bad. I'm going to share one more thing with you before I go, because a couple of weeks ago I talked about self-sabotage, and if I'm perfectly honest, I'm feeling it right now. And all the content I just recorded for you, I want to destroy. It doesn't feel good enough. It feels like it could be better. It feels like it could be more concise. I feel like I may have covered a topic that you may not be interested in, or I feel like I've covered a topic that I've covered before, or perhaps it doesn't make any sense. You're being really, really supportive. I know that. Unfortunately, the projection that I have of you is not as supportive, and I'm working on that. So I guess what I'm going to do is I'm just going to honor whatever's come out. It's really hard being a perfectionist sometimes. I can almost feel the urge to stop recording and start again, like I've missed something this time around. It's really interesting that. How could I do something completely different than the way I did it? I'm already creating projections of all the people around me, creating criticisms for what's been created. And yet no one's seen it. No one's experienced it. It's not even a finished product. I can't be the only person like this. I can't be the only person that's constantly second guessing themselves, that constantly destroys their work because they feel like they could have a better version of it, that is constantly trying to improve or create a different version of themselves whilst trying to accept the person that they are now. If I can get to a point where I accept my work for being as good as it is without trying to create a projection on other people and their opinions of it, well, then it will probably be a step in the right direction. It's so frustrating sometimes that I don't know how to communicate how this feels to you. I can't really explain what it's like to live like this. All I can do is share from my heart, but from my mind, it's not. From my mind, it's not adequate. From my mind, it's rubbish. From my mind, it makes no sense. From my mind, it's fluff. And this is the battle that I'm always in choosing my heart, is always facing these projections of expecting to release something where I'm seen as a rambling madman. Perhaps I just need to lean into the fact that I very well could be a rambling madman, and to accept that. I was telling you that there is no such thing as right or wrong, and it's becoming clear that the version of myself that I want to be, I inherently see as wrong. And if I inherently see it as wrong, then I will always be fighting, learning to accept and love myself. And so there, the battle is open and presented week by week, and message by message to you. I hope that each time I can just find it to understand and accept myself as I am just a little bit more every day. Just to let you know, I've also prepared this in a different format for you if you want to listen to this rather than watch it. I appreciate you're busy and I respect your time. I've now released a podcast just for you where you can listen to this, just if you feel that that's a more appropriable. I don't know where the word appropriable comes from. Just in case you think that that's a more appropriate format for you. I want to be able to share this experience in every way I possibly can. So if you're not already, make sure to check out the blog where I also share some thoughts with you daily, because this is an ever expanding and evolving process. And the more I feel like I can capture it and share it with you, the more I feel like it can benefit both of us. If you have any comments or any suggestions of stuff that you want to talk about next, then please drop it in the comments below, because I'd love to hear from you. And it really warms my heart to know that you are listening and you are there. I think that's a good point to finish. I'll see you next week. And if you want to keep in touch in the meantime, make sure to follow the blog, as I'll be writing to you on there daily. Take care. See you next week.